Hello everyone, this is Pogsta Fashion Workshop. I remind you that we post new videos every day. We're going to show you two different ways for edging vents in the garments with no lining. Today we're going to show you the first way. It's more simple. The second one is more interesting. We'll be making a mock-up. Imagine this is the back of the skirt. Natalie is drawing the center back seam. Next, we need to measure and mark 22 centimeters up from the bottom. This is how long the vent is going to be. Next, we need to mark the width of the vent. It is going to be 4 centimeters wide. The width of the seam extension is 1.5 centimeters. We're showing you the most simple way for edging the vents. This is the technique which we usually use. Let's start cutting. Natalie is making the bottom absolutely straight. The interfacing material should be cut in advance. The first detail should be as long as wide as the vent is, and the second one of the same length, but just 1 centimeter wide. I remind you that in our case, the vent is 22 centimeters long, and so are the details of the interfacing material. You can also double the bottom with the interfacing material if you need to. We're not going to do it now. We just want to show you how to edge the vents in the garments with no lining in them. Let's go to the ironing desk. We're going to double one side with a bigger detail and the second one with a smaller one. How to decide to which side to press the vent? There is one very useful technique. When you turn a garment right side out this way, a vent should be on the left side of the center back seam. Be very attentive. When you turn a garment right side out, the vent should be in your left arm. Why should we know it? We need to know it in order to decide how to double the details. This is how the vent is going to be pressed. The technique I just showed you is very useful. We need to attach the 1 centimeter wide detail to the upper side. The interfacing material should be cut on the grain. This is very important. Next, we need to attach the bigger piece of the interfacing material to the other side. In our case, it's 22 centimeters long and 4 centimeters wide. After that, we need to edge this side with an overlocker. In order to stitch the angle, Natalie is going to cut it. She's cutting about 1.5 centimeters. It should be done for us to be able to stitch this edge with an overlocker without any problems. Natalie is etching the details with an overlocker. She's reached the angle. Watch the way she is stitching it.
чтобы пройти этот угол оверлоком.
Be very attentive.
Оверлоком наш срез шлицы.
The both edges of the vent should be edged with an overlocker. Please, be especially attentive when stitching the angles. Don't make mistakes. We've edged the both details, so next we need to go to the sewing machine to stitch the center back seam. We're talking just about the vents now. We're not going to show you how to stitch the zippers or any other details.
Ну вот здесь принцип мы хотим показать, как именно обрабатывать шлицу.
Stop stitching about 1.5 or 2 cm below the angle level. Change the settings so that you get bigger stitches.
Крупный стежок, даже максимально крупный.
Stitch the drawn line to the very bottom.
Прошиваем на расстояние нашей шлицы.
The seam should be as wide as the vent is. The fabric we are working with allows making seams in it. You can tag the detail if it's not convenient to stitch it. I'm talking about the vent itself. It will be very convenient to work with the vent if you make a seam here. Have a look here. The first part of the seam ends on the angle level. It was fixed. Down from this point, the stitches are wider. Due to the fact that we made a seam here, it will be convenient for us to work with the vent. We won't make mistakes. To press the seam open. In order to do that, first we need to iron it. Watch the way Natalie is working. She is very gentle. Next, the vent itself should be pressed close to one side. The center back seam should be pressed open. Be very accurate. Don't stretch the details. Watch the way we are working. This is the only way to do it accurately. We sometimes make notches here in order to press the details accurately. Not all the fabrics allow doing it. Be very attentive. We also don't do it in the garments with no lining in them. Have a look here. Next, we need to iron the detail doubled with 1 cm wide stripe of interfacing. It should be folded in such way that the stitched edge covers the interfacing material. We are preparing this detail for stitching. We've pressed the vent close to one side, and then we fold it and press the upper edge for 5 mm. We've also decided to iron the overcast at the bottom. The overcast is going to be 4 cm wide, so we need to measure and mark 8 cm up from the bottom. After that, we need to press the bottom edge to the line. I remind you that we are making a mock-up. When making an actual garment, I recommend you making a spacing seam and ironing the overcast according to it.
Делать прокладочный шов, и по нему будете заутюживать.
We don't want to waste time on the unnecessary things. We are making a mock-up. Next, we need to do the same thing on the other side. Measure and mark 8 centimeters up from the bottom. Fold and press the bottom to the line. Be very attentive. These angles should be even. They should be made on the same level. Due to the fact that we made a seam here, it's very convenient for us to work with the vent. Let's go to the sewing machine to stitch the bottom together with the vent. First, we need to stitch this edge. Pin the overcast and stitch it. Natalie has stitched the first edge. This is how it looks like now. When we turn the detail right side out, it will be perfect. The edges will be hidden inside. Do not forget to cut the extra piece from the seam before doing it. This is how the detail looks like from the right side now. All the seams are hidden inside. Next, we need to stitch these details. The width of the seam should be 1 mm. We need to iron the details before stitching them. Very nice. We can start stitching now. Natalie is stitching the edge with 1 mm seam. When she reaches the overcast, she'll turn the detail. Watch what she's doing. Leave the needle inside the detail and turn the letter. We're stitching the overcast this way because we're working with the cotton. Seams look good in cotton garments. If you work with different fabrics, you can make invisible seams instead. Be very attentive. Next, we need to stitch the second side absolutely the same way. We're showing you the most simple ways of work. This is why we're stitching the angles not this way, but this. We're going to show you how to stitch it the other way in the next video. Natalie is stitching the overcast at the bottom. The seam should go to the very edge. Fix it in the end. For this part of the vent to be attached to the base, this small detail should be stitched by hands. Please be very attentive. Have a look at what Natalie is doing. She is making tiny, invisible stitches. Have a close look at what she is doing. This is the most simple way for edging the vents in the garments with no lining in them. Next, we need to make very beautiful decorative seams. They will also make the vent stronger. We need to draw a beautiful line for stitching on the right side. Notice where Natalie starts drawing. This is the point where the first part of the seam ends, and the second one, with the big stitches, starts. Mark the point and draw a bias line through it. The seam should be fixed here. It should be fixed in the end as well. For the vent not to break, you need to make one more tiny seam here. It should be made under the first one. This is what I'm talking about. For this seam not to break, we need to make one more here. You can actually make it closer to the first one. Stitch just the seam extensions. This is very important. Natalie has made a decorative seam here. It also makes the detail stronger. Anyway, we had to make one more seam lower. It will prevent the vent from breaking. This small detail can help you keep a skirt or a dress in order much longer. Next, we need to rip this part of the seam open and iron the details for the last time. I remind you that the seam on the center back should be pressed open and the vent close. There are two seams here. They will prevent the vent from breaking. This is the easiest way for edging the vents and the garments with no lining in them. Due to the fact that we made a spacing seam in the vent, it was very convenient to work with it. I'm glad that we decided to show you this useful technique. Next time, we're going to show you one more. That's all for today. Be different and beautiful. We're Ira and Natalie. Subscribe to this channel, write comments, share the videos, press the like and the bell buttons. We would really appreciate your support. Thank you. Goodbye.